My name is Philicia Saunders, and if you want to learn more about my play Breathe, a solo experience, watch this video. I first fell in love with theater when I was in third grade. I was a very introverted, shy child, and so I felt like theater was a creative outlet for me. I would see performers on stage. My favorite actor at the time was Jim Carrey, and I remember being maybe like 5 years old, and I said, whatever he's doing, I want to do that. I don't know what that is, but I want to be on stage and I want to be embodying something that's not myself and just expressing myself creatively. So I asked my mom if I could do this theater program after school in third grade, and I never asked my mom for anything. And she said, okay, I mean, you've never asked me for anything, but I will, of course, let this happen, and sign the permission form. And so from there, I was hooked. I was hooked on storytelling and the interaction that you have with the audience and how you express through theater itself is like something that is just the best thing in the world to me. I get lost in it when I'm reading plays. I love William Shakespeare. I've done a number of Shakespeare plays as an actor. And he is like the person that I look up to in terms of how to tell a good story and how to be a better playwright. So I fell in love with acting immediately after my sixth grade play. I knew I wanted to be an actor from then on. We did William Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, where I played Malvolio, and I took it so seriously. The teacher wanted us to write, like, our lines were going to be on index cards. As sixth graders, you don't really need to memorize your lines. I memorized all my lines because I was like, this is something I'm going to take professionally, even though it's a school play. I'm going to do this like head on. And then just recently with, the work that I'm doing on my show, Breathe, this is really a turning point for me as an actor, because I've never wrote about my life story before and shared it with people. So I'm going to take this moment and this experience now as somebody who's doing, a memoir, so to speak, and use it for future work, because as an actor, you're really, no matter what character you're taking on, you really have to draw from yourself and your life story and experiences, which is what I'm doing in this show, Breathe, and just use it to the fullest. No matter what character you're playing, that's where you get your emotions and your access from, is from your life and your story. I fell in love with writing when I was very young, just writing stories and vignettes with my sister. My sister is 18 months older than me, and so we're very, very close. And we would write stories together and act them out with our friends, and we just love creating and being in like a fantasy world together, and just it just brings out so much joy in our being, in our it's just great. And it also brings us closer together as a family. And the writing that I'm doing now, especially, with Breathe, my solo show, I want to also affect change and make sure that, there are conversations that are had around the topics that I'm bringing up in my play. I'm writing about social unrest. I'm writing about the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s. I'm writing about my ancestors who were enslaved for years and years. I want to not only bring up themes that we need to talk about, but also things that can sort of affect change in our community. I mean, the main portion of my show is how I became sort of more active in my community, and how I've, been able to sort of be a better activist, as not only as an artist, but as a person. So I want to inspire people to do the same, not only be silent about, some issues that they have to come about over the course of any given day, but also just to wake up and be more active in their community and take action. So I fell in love with it this past year because I feel like what I'm doing is so important. And these are the stories that we need to be talking about today and doing today. So I do a lot of journaling, specifically for the show that I'm putting on this year. I am writing a lot about my experiences on the civil rights tour I did in 2018, where we went to Alabama and went to various museums and met with influential people and ate very good soul food. And during that experience, I just journaled how I was feeling, what how this is affecting me personally. Um, and so what I did from there, or what I usually do when I journal, is that I build a framework around it, and then, try and see how I can, make a structure, how I can structure it into a full length play. So, and I also work with I have a really great team of people that I work with. I have a dramaturg. His name is Dylan Southard, and my director, Roger Q. Mason, helped me sort of think about how I can shape these things and make it into a full length play, and how I can have an impact behind it. So just at the end of it all, I really feel like journaling is such a really good way to start the process of writing, because you can then go back and flesh out your ideas, and put them on post-it notes and see like how maybe I should talk about this in the beginning, or I should move this towards the end. And I also, one thing about this show, because it's so relevant to what happened in 2020 in terms of the unlawful killings of unarmed Black people, and the pandemic, and everything is like in my show. And so I've been writing this show and building on this story as this year has gone on. So I wasn't even, the last part of my show wasn't written until July, because of an experience I had while I was protesting during the George Floyd protests. And so the play continued to develop. So I say you're going to have to just keep on writing, no matter what you're writing about. Just keep on writing. If something comes in your head, you're going to have to just write it down really quickly, and because the emotions and ideas are still fresh and they're there. So that's mainly my process, journaling, and then just like keep it coming as it comes into your head, and then just build a structure around that with your creative team, if you're lucky enough to have one. So I'm just going to start from the beginning. I originally wanted to do a published play last year, a one-woman show, because I do have experience in doing one-woman shows. I did a thesis while I was at Princeton. I did Fires in the Mirror by Anna Devere Smith, and then I also did Pretty Fire by Charlene Woodard, and some years before that. And I just wanted to do a published work. And my producer and director told me, they were like, Philicia, why aren't you doing your own work? Why aren't you writing your own stories? And even though I do those privately, and I wrote a libretto for a play in high school, I never really have written a full length play about my experience as a Black woman in this world, and the space I occupy in this world. And I was at first nervous, because when you're writing your own stories and you're writing about something that is true and meaningful to you, you're obviously going to be vulnerable and sensitive to it, because you're going to be sharing that with the world. You might get judged. People have their opinions. But in the end, I feel like I'm getting so much more from this project, and it's really nourishing my soul in that sense, because I am sharing my story, my life, my perspective, where I come from. There are so many different things that I talk about in this show that I wouldn't be able to if I were doing someone else's story, or if I was doing a Shakespeare play. This is something that is really meaningful and true to who I am. And I am enjoying the process even more, because it is me. This is my essence. So Breathe is about my experience as a Black woman in America, and how the different experiences and moments I've had in my life where I wasn't sharing my voice, or being, I was just being silent, and for a lack of better words, complacent in this world, and not really feeling connected and aware of who I am in this world. Honestly, because like, if you're going through this world as a Black person or a person of color, you're all often faced with adversity, and with that, it kind of affects who you are and what you're being, like your self-worth, and because like you go after so many things in your life to try and reach a certain point, but then there's always someone who's going to knock you down a peg, or just like tell you you're the diversity hire, or things like that. So I have different vignettes in my show where I speak about my experiences, and how those different things that I have experienced, whether it be microaggressions or, adversity, how those things I'm able to change them and be a more active person in my community, and how I'm able to love myself in that process. Because when you're facing those different things in life that aren't very positive, you have to find positivity in it all. And at the end, I sort of speak about so many different things. I speak about the George Floyd protests this year, the pandemic. I speak about my experiences in college and high school. And then at the end, there's a call to action. There's, you can't just be silent and stand in one place. I learned that same quote from a woman named Sweet Alice Harris, who is an activist in the Watts community. She has taught me and inspired me to be a more active member in my community for, not only Black people, but just like being a woman and in this community and in this country, you need to have some courage to do that. And so that is the sort of overarching theme of my play, is not standing back, not watching the world go by, but having a more active participation in what's going on in this world and being aware of it and sparking the conversation with not only, your friends, but people you don't know, like people who may say something to you or someone else and that's not okay. And just speaking up and saying, hey, that's not okay. This is how you can't just say that to somebody. So just sparking activism, and it's an art activism piece. And I'm hoping that, it will spark conversation with the community that I share it with. It is very, very unique. I started this play. It was supposed to be a live theater performance in a very small setting, 25-seat theater studio. And then unfortunately the pandemic happened. And so the festival it was supposed to be in was the Hollywood Fringe Festival, and it was canceled due to the pandemic. So then instead of giving up fully, because there was a moment where I was like, well, I guess I could just do this in 2 years. I put my foot down and I was like, I have to do this year because it is so relevant to what is going on in 2020 with social unrest, social unrest, the election, the country is more divided than ever. I just needed to put my foot down and just put this out into the world. So I had to go back to the drawing board and literally and revamp the whole play to happen online. So with that comes pre-recorded material, voiceover. There's opportunities for voiceover. There's opportunities for a live portion. So there are live portions throughout the play where it'll be broadcast, and I'm doing live monologues mixed in between all of the pre-recorded material and voiceover and things like that. And I do have an artistic swimming element in the show. That's my background. I am a swimmer / artistic swimmer. So there are moments of me underwater doing different moves, and there's a whole motif throughout the play that involves that. But the process has been insane. I mean, I mainly have a theater background, so I know how to put on a play, not only as an actor, but as, a producer, and I know how to work with my stage manager. But this is a whole nother beast. I mean, you're essentially doing a film, and then you're also doing a theater performance. So I have a great team of designers, editors, director, photographer, sound designers, composers who are working night and day on the filmic aspects of this show. And so with that, you have so many more people to be interfacing with every day and talking about like, hey, here's my feedback on this film portion. Here's my feedback on this sound cue or lighting cue in the stage. So you're talking with so many different people at one time versus the beginning of this process when it was a smaller production. I had 5 people. Now I have 24 people that I'm working with every day on this production. So in a short answer, it has gone from a very small team to a bigger sort of creative team in a larger scope. So it is very difficult, but I'm learning every day. This might be the future of theater. So, I mean, now that I've worked and done this kind of work right now, I'm able to do that in more shows that I'm going to be creating in the future. So it's great. And you also have a wider audience. You can reach people across the country or around the world because they'll just get a link, tune in from their couch, and they can see the show from anywhere. So it's tough, but I'm excited about the possibilities. Why Roger Q. Mason as my director and producer? He goes all the way back to when I think I was maybe when I met him, I was 15. He went to Princeton with my sister, and he was in her class. And I was 2 classes below because I also went to Princeton. And he was a part of the theater community at Princeton, and he welcomed me with open arms when I started, when I became a freshman there. He was a junior, and he welcomed me with open arms and told me, "Hey, Felicia, you need to be a part of Black Arts Company drama. You need to put, you need to be doing these kind of things." And I always admired his work and his creativity and his beautiful way with words. That, I mean, I tell him this every single day. And when I brought this project to him, I mentioned before, he said, "Felicia, you need to be doing your own work." He's a pseudo mentor to me. And he inspired me to bring my voice out and share my voice in this kind of way. And so essentially, when I knew I wanted to do a one-woman show, whether it be me writing it or me doing something else, I knew I immediately wanted to work with him because I've worked with him before, and I know the type of mind he has and the creativity he has and the sage-like, Yoda-like attitude he has. And I knew immediately I wanted to be with him working on this kind of project. I'm so glad that I'm able to do this with him now, where the show is, where it is now, and the stage it is at now. I'm so proud and happy to be with him working on this, because his insight and his ideas are also in this show, making it better every single day, making it beautiful. There are so many different motifs that we have in this show that are just beautiful, and I'm so proud of it. And I really think that he has added to the vision that I am trying to portray and breathe. I want the audience to come on this journey with me. The show is a journey. It is my life journey, and it is also a journey that other people have taken outside of myself. I really want some people to look at the show and see how they can connect their life stories to my own, and how they can not only find a pathway to activism and being more an active community member, but also just have a conversation not only with their mother or father or sister or brother, but also other people in their community, and how they can be a more, I keep saying this, how they can be a more active person in their community, because that is how I was able to find that for myself. I talk about how for so many years I've been silent, or I have not even paid attention to the things that have happened to me. But now I feel like I need to, more so than ever, to take a more active step in that direction, because I want to be an inspiration to someone else who is sitting back and just thinking, "Man, that wasn't right. Someone said something that wasn't right," or "I witnessed something that wasn't right." Instead of not saying anything or being silent, taking a more active participation in that moment versus complacent. So I want the audience to start having those conversations with themselves if they're not being more active in their community, but like how they can, as artists. I mean, I'm an artist, and this is my way of activism, is to portray it through art. And so I want to inspire other people to do the same. I wish my younger self was inspired to do that. And it really doesn't matter what stage of your life you're in. As long as it happens, you'll feel more fulfilled, not only as a person, but as, just as a human being. So that's essentially what I hope to get from the show, and I hope the audience can take from the show. Well, storytelling, we're so lucky to be storytellers and to show, because the access of film, television, theater is so widespread. You can watch it from your couch, you can watch it from your phone, you can go to the theater, live theater or a movie screen, and see stories, and it's so easily accessible to the world. And so the importance of art activism for me is that it has that same access. It is all around the world. You can experience it all around the world and inspire all around the world. That's part of the reason why I wanted to be an actor, is because I wanted to inspire. I wanted to, the hardworking doctor who just finished their surgery goes home, turns on the TV, or goes to a play to relax, to be inspired. So I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to affect change and be a part of people's lives. Even though I may not know them or may not see them, I'm affecting them in some way. So I feel like art activism, we're lucky enough to have art activism sort of have that same access because we can reach all around the world. And it's more important to do that now more so than ever is because we are so divided, and it's just just to see what has happened this entire year. I mean, this year has been a year for a lot of us. Just to see what has happened and see how divided this country is. I want my show and the future shows that I put on to sort of make a change in my community and to inspire people to be more active in their community. Um, and it just seems, my play is just so relevant to what's going on that, it is more important now than ever to bring it to so many different people around this country and around the world. Um, I want to also there's an aspect in my show where I talk about loving yourself. When you're faced with a lot of different, microaggressions or racism or things that my people have experienced for years and years and years and years. There's a part in my show where I talk about loving yourself despite all of the negativity that may have come your way. And you have to do that in order to survive. Um, you know, it's for a lot of my years on this planet, you know, I wasn't really fully loving myself because, I would experience something or a tiny little microaggression that would make me feel worthless, or I wasn't doing something okay, or, but you have to come to loving yourself and loving each other in order to overcome that, in order to overcome the worthlessness or not feeling like you're doing a good job, or things like that. So I think it's more important now than ever because the world is so divided. We need to love each other and also love ourselves, or else we're not going to come out on top in the end. I think more of my kind of voices should be throughout the theater community, because I just want to take it back to when I was a young girl who loved theater, loved doing theater. When I would go to plays, there weren't many plays out there that were like a Hamilton, or where you see people who look like you on stage and who are doing stories similar to yours. It was not until I had encountered Anna Devere Smith, who is an amazing actress who does sort of documentary theater and has inspired me to do one-woman shows today. I went and saw her show, or I saw the PBS version of Twilight, and I sat back and I said, I can do that. That she is also telling stories that are impactful, that talk about things that matter or have a social impact. And I said, I want to do that. I'm not saying that, there are other plays that don't, have a sort of social impact meaning to them, but what she was doing, the purpose behind what she was doing, I wanted to do as well. So, I think just the mere fact of inspiring people, young people who don't see themselves on the stage or on the screen often, I think that's why it's so important to have, stories from people of color more so now than ever, because we need to inspire the youth. We need to inspire each other. It's so important for young people. I think about myself all the time as a young kid, just like seeing what's on stage. I mean, I told you from the beginning, the person I wanted to be was whatever he was doing was Jim Carrey. Why wasn't I mentioning where were the Black people that why wasn't I inspired by that at a very young age? Because of the access. So I think that I'm gung-ho for more, people of color telling their stories and having that out there so we can just inspire. So we have 4 shows. 2 of the shows will be live. December 11th and December 12th are the live portions of my show schedule. And then the 13th and the 18th of December are rebroadcasted shows. But at the end of each of those shows will be a talkback. So their proceeds of my ticket sales are going to 2 organizations that are very dear to me. Parents of Watts, which is Sweet Alice Harris's organization. out of Watts, California, and then Community Coalition, which is an organization in South LA. So the one on the 13th will be a talkback with Sweet Alice Harris. I speak about her. Her words of wisdom are the fabric of this show. She's an activist in Watts, California, and helped bring the community back together after the Watts unrest of 1965. And from that, like I said, she created Parents of Watts, helping Black and Brown people in that community. So we're having a conversation with her on the 13th at the end of the show, along with another activist and artist named Bruce Lemon Jr. And then the one on the 18th, the talkback will be with Community Coalition. There will be members from that organization who will be speaking about being more active in the community and how how we can find more progress in the community in South LA. So I mean, the main purpose of the show has grown so much bigger than myself. I want to it is art activism. It is creating conversation and sparking conversations, not only in our community, but, within ourselves, with ourselves. So those talkbacks, I'm looking forward to them more than my show, but it's a part of my show essentially. So I'm looking forward to them and seeing what kind of conversation will come of it. So yeah, I just want to say that my show wouldn't be possible without there's so many people that I'm working with, so many designers, and most of which I've known for years. So I'm just so happy and excited to be working on something that's so near and dear to me, and who is the being of who I am. I'm just so excited to be working and sharing this with them, and also just sharing it with the world in December. I believe viewers must see my show because it is very relevant to what is going on this year with social unrest, the division of the country, killings of unarmed Black people. It deals with my experience, which could be shared along with so many people across this country, and how I've been able to sort of push towards activism and being a more active part of my community and not being silent about issues that matter. I think that with art, you can create so many wonderful conversations that will affect change in communities, not only in LA, but just around the world. I think audiences have to see it in December before 2020 is over, even though we might all be over this year. I really think this is I don't want to say the perfect, but the necessary thing to see and experience before this year ends, because we really need to be having these conversations more so now than ever. Art is important now, and this is a part of that. My name is Philicia Saunders. I hope you enjoyed our conversation about my play Breathe, a solo experience. I hope to see you on December 11th through 18th. I am really excited to bring this out into the world and start having those conversations we need to have today.